In this week's Insights Unlocked, UserTesting's Vice President of Corporate Marketing, Paige Musto, talks with Kristy Morrison, a Senior Manager for Digital Intelligence and Optimization at F5. Their conversation was recorded at UserTesting's The Human Insight Summit in Seattle last month. They touch on various topics related to digital marketing, including creative and prototype testing, as well as using qualitative insights to better understand the why behind your web analytics. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to Insights Unlocked, an original podcast from UserTesting, where we bring you candid conversations and stories with the thinkers, doers, and builders behind some of the most successful digital products and experiences in the world, from concept to execution.
Welcome to the Insights Unlocked podcast. We are recording this live at UserTesting's The Human Insight Summit. I'm Nathan Isaacs, and joining us today as host is Paige Musto, Vice President of Corporate Marketing at UserTesting. Welcome, Paige.
Thank you.
And our guest today is Kristy Morrison, Senior Manager for Digital Intelligence and Optimization at F5 here in Seattle. Her focus is creating world-class experiences across all digital channels for F5's customers, both current and prospective. And while nobody is asking, I would like to mention that Kristy and I went to grad school together, getting our MBAs at Willamette University. Welcome to the show, Kristy.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. Okay, we got 2 MBAs in the house, myself included, actually, but I didn't go to Willamette. But shout out.
It's Willamette, damn it.
Not Willamette.
Willamette, damn it.
Willamette, damn it. Oh, is that okay?
I like that. That's how you know how you're saying it, right?
Willamette, damn it.
And we're live.
Oh, shoot. Are we actually live? I think we're live.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
We are live from the HX living room, but I think we were live before that as well. So who knows what they just captured there.
Just curious where the curse words need to keep it professional, Kristy.
Are there kids in the room? I guess that's what you ask. All right, Kristy. So F5 is a customer of UserTesting. Is that right?
We are a customer of UserTesting, yes.
Okay. Appreciate it. Thanks for the business.
Hey, you're welcome.
I guess for those of us that don't know who F5 is or what F5 does, do you want to do a little elevator pitch for us?
Yeah, that's a great question. A lot of folks don't, and I think that's in some ways maybe a good thing because that means our products are working. So we power the technology or create the technology behind all of the apps that you use at work or at home. So you may not know who we are, but the people that run insert app here on your phone definitely know who we are. So we make sure the apps run. We make sure they run regularly and that they run safely, almost more importantly.
Great. Just curious. So who's the main buyer? Like, I guess, who do you guys sell to? Just curious.
A lot of IT folks, a lot of CISOs, so security professionals.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I guess in your role, we talk about digital intelligence, digital experience. I'm assuming there's a lot of data streams, different sources that you guys are pulling from, looking at with, I guess, the whole goal of improving the customer experience, right? Can you kind of share an example of what that process is and then what you mean by digital properties?
Yeah, so maybe I'll start there first. When we say digital properties, I always joke internally if it happens on the internet or if it happens in Google, it's either my fault or I care deeply about it. So my primary focus at work is f5.com. So that's our primary, some folks like to call it the marketing website. I just call it our company's website. It's our front door. But when you look at the customer journey all the way from awareness through, discover, learn, try, buy, own, use, etc., there's a lot of digital touchpoints that come into play there. There's where you log in to pay your bill. There's where you log in to use the product. There's where you log in to get customer support. Those are all part of the digital customer experience. And so there's something I care deeply about. And I work across the organization to make those as meaningful and as simple to use as possible, largely leveraging data, like you mentioned. My most common source of data and data intelligence is going to be web analytics, like I'm sure it is for a lot of the people that are using this product using UserTesting. Web analytics is pretty foundational to what we do, but that's certainly not the only data source. We do a lot of testing. Testing is a data source. It's a data channel. So UserTesting comes into play. But we also have our customer database, right? So various different data sources in there, how people are using our products, so telemetry type data. The process...
Telemetry data. Talk to me about that.
Yeah, so like how people are actually using the product, like how often they're logging in or what things they're engaging with
so tell
the
you
portal.
kind of usage and adoption
Yeah.
of, okay.
Yeah.
And that's of the logged in, obviously, side.
Yeah.
So when you say your digital property, so you've got the logged out experience, which is your website. You've got the logged in experience, which is logging into the product. And then you also have where a customer would come in to log in to pay a bill.
Yeah.
Right. And within your role, you oversee those 3 different experiences?
I would not say oversee. No, I would say largely partner with those teams to help make the best possible user experience. So we're talking about devs, engineers, business owners, kind of all over the universe of F5, who are building their product and building their ecosystem and trying to make it as seamless as possible.
I guess just kind of curious with when it comes to kind of testing, what are the different things that you find yourself to be testing? So you're using kind of your Google Analytics, Web Analytics. Are there certain things and data that you look at that tells you whether, something needs to kind of be investigated a little bit more? And then do you kind of apply any sort of kind of qualitative testing on top of that? What's kind of that relationship of like the things that you guys test and why you test? Or is there data helping you inform why you should test?
Sure. So I think of testing kind of one coin, 2 sides of the coin. So user testing largely falls onto one side of the coin. So I've got a UX folks on my team who are looking at building experiences, partnering with design, partnering with the dev to make sure that we're building out the best possible experiences. And user testing allows us to test a lot of those designs and test those functionalities before we ever go and invest dev resources into creating them. As a lot of people probably can relate to, dev resources are often hard to come by. So we like to use them intelligently, and user testing allows us to do that. It allows us to validate our hypotheses, validate the designs, that they are creating engagements that are what we are trying to create. Like we're creating purposeful engagements. So that's half of it. And then the other half is using technology like an Optimizely, in our case, Adobe Target, to make iterative improvements once all of that work is borne out, is live in the production environment. Then we can test and iterate from there, whether we're trying to tweak conversion rates or trying to make sure people are getting to the content down at the bottom of the page, or whatever the little problem is that we're trying to solve, that we can do iterative testing on the front end to make sure that we're optimizing that experience.
Yeah, that's great. Makes sense. I'm curious how you think of the world of kind of like brand and then web performance or conversion rate optimization, because I feel like, sometimes it's the more simple journeys that maybe have better, performance or results. But then there's kind of that area where the brand and the experience and those touch points kind of like come together. So yeah, I mean, I guess I'm just kind of curious how in your world you're looking at bringing in kind of the brand and the creative elements and fostering kind of that along with, ensuring performance and site, metrics and performance and things like that.
Yeah, that you just covered a ton of really important things that are all part of the matrix of things we have to worry about as digital professionals, right? So we're talking about brand and brand perception. That's absolutely a huge part of it. Every good experience that you create with your customer is part of your brand. Yeah. So is every bad experience. So is every frustrating experience. And you talked a little bit about the simple things. I think sometimes those are the easiest to overlook. It's like you focus so much on creating this big, beautiful customer journey, and you forgot that the button, you can't click on it, or the copy, you have to click on the button and not the copy, or whatever, It's
right, like, it's not as functional as one would like.
It's so easy to just kind of overlook that stuff because you're so focused on the big things. So looking at our data regularly and interrogating that data to make sure that we haven't missed something, that we haven't accidentally optimized our way into a really frustrating experience. And you can see that using, different visuals and things like flowcharts and abandonment rates and things like that through the process. But it also, you talked about the creative aspects of it. So working with your designers, working with the people who create the copy and the writing, which is how your brand comes to life on the page, right, is making sure we're also bringing those folks in. So in our weekly testing, just an example of how we do that, we have a weekly testing meeting where we've got writers who are there with us. I've got designers that are there with us. I've got creative folks that come in, and they all weigh in on every single test we do, whether it's, even if it's just to weigh in and say, yes, I approve, or to champion something like, actually, have you thought of this problem in this way? Or have you thought of this implication of this decision that you're making and how it might impact for good or for worse?
Yeah.
But it really is a collaborative effort, because there's no way that myself, I'm going to able to represent all of those different, professional areas. So that collaboration really becomes super key, all in the testing conversation. And so we get everybody involved. There's no man left behind on that one.
Well, that's important, right? Because then there's kind of just like a shared understanding in the room of, looking at the numbers and then, taking it back and saying, okay, my role, right, and my responsibilities, and then how do we support from the brand perspective, the creative perspective, the digital, the copy. And so, that's important to kind of get everybody kind of rallying around the data together.
Absolutely. And I think creative professionals bring a lot to those processes. Data is really powerful, but data is only as valuable as the insights and the stories that you can pull out of it. And I think the creative professionals, the designers, the writers, they see a lot of clarity through the mud that I'm not always able to see. My analytics people aren't always able to see, and they just add a ton of value. So they're really integral into that part of the work. So making sure, like you said, we're bringing that brand experience to the customer and through the testing that we're doing.
Reduce your average sprint time and get your products to market faster with continuous customer feedback from UserTesting. Whether you're launching a new product or prototype, get real-time video feedback straight from the source. Digital product teams leverage the UserTesting Human Insight platform to help them make their most critical development decisions, always putting the customer first. Target your exact audience, ask questions, and get a window into their world. Result? Your teams are building better products and experiences that your customers love. To get started, visit usertesting.com/audio.
Let's talk about prototyping. Where does prototyping kind of fall within the marketing organization? How do you guys approach prototyping to kind of validate or vet, an early concept?
That is one of the more fun parts of what we get to do, because it's a clean slate, right? Optimization, especially as it relates to A/B testing or CRO, is often taking what you already have and working to tweak and make it better. And I think one of the things that's hardest to overcome in that process is getting stuck in what you already have. Unless you kind of actively work and force yourself to challenge every assumption, you're going to miss stuff. You're going to not, I hate the think outside the box thing, but you're literally not thinking out of the box when you're starting from where you are. Prototyping allows you to literally take a clean slate and say, well, forget what we have. What do we want to see? What could we see? What could we do? Art of the possible kind of thing. So every so often, I think it's important to start that type of exercise and take an art of the possible type of approach to what could we do if this navigation didn't exist? What could we do if these limitations didn't exist? What does that look like? And let's go ask some people, what do you think about that? That's obviously really high level philosophical view on your question.
Yeah.
But from a very real perspective, I think it allows us to take a very clean slate approach to solving the problems that the business brings to us, or that we bring to the business even sometimes, and say, well, what would we do? How would we solve this problem if none of these things existed? And does that work? Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes you end up with the same old nav because that's how the internet works, right? We're not creating, a new internet here. People expect navigational items. People expect certain elements, but it does kind of force you to start from scratch, and I really appreciate that.
Just curious, with all the testing that you guys are doing, has there been any, kind of breakthrough perspectives that you've kind of captured in the sense of unexpected outcomes? You might have thought that, something should have been done this way, and come to find out after doing some testing, validating it, you realized that, hey, we need to do a quick pivot and make some changes here. Just curious, any unexpected, outcomes that have come from some of your testing that you didn't think were going to happen.
Yeah, but I'm not coming up with any great, big, sexy example for you right now. I think that happens all the time, and I love it because it means we've learned something new. Being wrong means that we have the opportunity to correct an assumption or correct an understanding that we had. And in fact, in this last quarter, I was doing a summary for a presentation that I had to give on all the tests that we ran in the quarter. And I was laughing as I was pulling the material together. It was like, well, this one was a fail. This one we didn't reach stat sig. This one we didn't reach stat sig. This one was a fail. And like one of them was a success in the traditional sense. And some people might say, well, that feels like a giant waste of time. Absolutely not, because the test was proposed based on a hypothesis, and the goal is to learn something through that process, not to just simply validate a hypothesis, right?
True, yeah.
So every time we conclude a test, for whatever reason, we've gotten better and we've gotten smarter. So that happens all the time. Like I said, not some big sexy example where we're like, oh, we really believe that if you put a contact sales button on every single page, everybody's going to click it more often. No, I don't have an example of that. But
there's a learning moment to each one of those,
constantly. And I think that's my favorite part, because it really feeds into the curiosity that keeps things exciting. You know, there's that moment where you're like, oh, that did not go down how I thought it was. It's like the plot twist in the movie, you know, it kind of makes you uncomfortable, but you can't do anything but be entertained by it. You're like, what? That really, you know, and then you double check and you make sure everything was set up correctly. And then you're like, yeah, really.
Right. Yeah, I feel like as marketers, sometimes we use our conventional wisdom and we say like, you know what, that's what's going to work. I know the audience.
Yeah.
You do some testing of your creatives, of your walk-up lines, and you realize it was not received in the manner in which you had intended it to be. And sometimes you got to flip the script and, you know, take the insight that was given, and, you know, maybe it's not what you had originally thought or preferred, or, you know, that the vision that you had around it, but you do what it's going to impact the customers and what the customers say they need and want. So
absolutely. And hey, I'm really glad that we tested that, because now we know we know that we were wrong and we checked that assumption before we marched down that road. Now we have the opportunity to figure out what the right path actually is. Not, you know, I always call the Ron Popeil marketing, which I know how many people are old enough to know Ron Popeil, but you can't just set it and forget it. It's not the set it and forget it Ron Popeil moment. You have to like actively, you know, do the care and feeding of all of these things, including your assumptions.
I remember when marketing automation kind of just came out, we had email marketing and marketing automation technology. It was kind of that whole set it, forget it type concept, right? Like you can build the programs, you can set it and you forget it. It's going to be delivered at the right time to the right person. But it's
right.
Like, you know, is that really the right way to do it? I don't know. But let's see. I'm just curious, your tech stack, right? I'm assuming you guys are using quite a few different technologies. What does a tech stack look like for you in your role?
It's a constantly changing landscape. I think we call it the NASCAR slide at work, where we've got all the different logos of the different technology that we're using. Right now, though, specifically to the website, we are using a lot of Adobe products. So I mentioned Adobe Target. I probably mentioned Adobe Analytics in there, just out of habit. Of course, we use the Googles of the world. I've used Optimizely. Now we use Adobe Target. Marketo, Salesforce, kind of common stuff. Of course, UserTesting is in the stack.
Shout out to UserTesting.
Shout out to UserTesting.com. So that's definitely a key player in our stack. And we recently added Notch, which is a tool that I'm excited to start playing with to look at content efficacy. So I always joke, gosh, it would be so much easier if we just sold shoes, because I could just measure, you know, visit to click to conversion to cash and all of the really straightforward. Yeah. You're selling B2B enterprise technology for security professionals. These cycles are long.
Long journeys, yeah.
Yes, you have conversion points throughout there, but like it's not as straightforward as buying a pair of tennis shoes. So content efficacy and measuring engagement on things is a really core piece of the funnel. And are we moving people down the funnel? Are we moving them down the funnel effectively and without friction and in the speed in which we would like to see them be moving? And so
that's an interesting point. So you talk about content efficacy, right? So I'm assuming, are you guys doing some sort of like multi-touch model to understand what content is helping to move, you know, a prospect through that funnel, or how do you measure content efficacy?
That is a really great question, and one that's really hard. I mean, so we have, I think probably all marketers at this point are looking at lots of different attribution models, whether first touch, last touch, probably not last touch, but definitely a multi-touch. So certainly with content journeys that span the length of time that ours do, and for folks that similarly, you are trying to look as full journey as you can. It is really hard, though, because you're talking about really long journeys. But you're also talking about buying groups of people. It's not an individual. So suddenly your cookie starts to be kind of meaningless.
Well, cookies are going to, everything I'm reading,
Any
right?
day now. We're just waiting.
And they talk about how customer feedback and kind of qualitative feedback is going to be kind of rising up in importance, because once cookies go away,
absolutely,
you need to understand who your customers are, understand how they buy, adopt, use, and things of that nature. So
yeah, and as we're thinking about the customer journey and the content that applies to that customer journey, it really requires a really deep customer understanding of like, what are the questions that they have throughout the journey, and what is our answer? What is our content response to that question? And making sure that we've built into the website, the interface, whatever product that they're in at that moment, we've built in easy ways for them to get to their next question, which means also we have to know what the next question is. So there's UI elements there, there's deep customer insights there. And then of course there's all the data that either validates or invalidates whether we did it right to begin with.
Well, it seems like you've got a busy job, a quite important role, obviously, on behalf of the company. So, digital marketers.
Well, it takes a team. We've got a lot of folks focused on the digital experience there, and I'm just the loudest one today. So
you're one of the players, right? I'd say marketing in general is very much of a team sport,
absolutely.
Right? Just like these conferences, I always say it's all these different folks across the organization come together. They have their roles and they make things happen. And so I think in marketing as well, we each have defined roles. We roll up our sleeves and we make things happen. So,
absolutely.
Before I let you go, one question around AI. I think it's kind of all the buzz right now.
Oh, yes, every buzz.
and as marketers, right, I'd love to just kind of ask you what your thoughts are on AI and how you see it, whether it's evolving, the digital marketing discipline or, experience research. Talk to me about AI. What's your initial thoughts of it?
Right now, I feel a little bit like I'm drinking from the AI fire hose, and I probably
every company all of a sudden is just like, we've had AI, here we are, right?
Yeah, and I think a lot of companies, ours included, have actually been doing a lot of work in AI for a very long time now. It just hadn't been getting the buzz or wasn't called that.
Well, see, that's the interesting thing. I think you bring a good point, is because I think a lot of companies have invested in chief scientists and building
absolutely.
out AI. But I don't think the market and consumers were ready to know and fully embrace the fact that what was being automated or how it was being automated was actually AI or machine learning, right? And then all of a sudden, I feel like it happened overnight in the last 30 days. It was like all of a sudden, like we became a little bit more comfortable and open to the idea that, hey, like AI can kind of help. It can transform the way that we do things.
And they gave us something that we could play with.
It's that ChatGPT, right?
Yeah, and I think for a lot of people, until you give me something I can literally put my hands on, I'm not going to get it.
Yeah.
Like, well, okay, you're telling me this is going to change the world, but like I don't see it. Now I can see it because I can go into ChatGPT and ask it whatever you're going to ask it. Right? I've heard some funny stories.
What have you put into ChatGPT?
I've tried a lot of things. The last one I tried was actually as a result of something I read on X, Twitter, whatever we're calling it now.
Whatever it is.
Some guy had shared a thread about how he basically did some meal planning prepping with ChatGPT. He like gave it all of their food preferences, favorite meals, like calorie limitations, macro requirements that he wanted to have. And, it was iterative. It wasn't...
Well, you have to prompt it, right? You got to give it some information.
So it was all about getting the prompts right. And basically the output was this incredible meal plan and a grocery shopping list. And I thought, now that is a helpful use of ChatGPT that I can get behind. So I haven't fully deployed that tool yet, but it was something that I played with and I thought it was really fun.
All right, Kristy, thank you so much for joining. If someone wants to learn more about you, where should they go?
You can definitely try to find me on X/Twitter, whatever we're calling it
whatever
now.
We're calling it right now.
I'm at
X-Twitter.
Kristy, at Kristy, first name club, # first name club. I don't use it that much anymore, so LinkedIn is a great place to find me. Kristy Morrison on LinkedIn is a great way to reach out.
Awesome, great, thank you.
Want to keep the conversation going? You can find the show notes at usertesting.com/podcast. If you haven't already, don't forget to follow us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Overcast, or Google Play so you never miss an episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, please share it with a friend or leave us a rating and review on Apple Podcasts. And until next time, this is Insights Unlocked, an original podcast from UserTesting.